So that does it for week 2 of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. And a lot of people this week have showed up and showed out to try to earn a spot on this final 53-man roster. And that's what makes camp so interesting. You have guys on the edge of the roster fighting for the final spots. And this week, a lot of undrafted guys have showed up and showed out. So before I get more into who's the biggest winners to take away from this week, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right into it. And we're going to start off with Roc Taylor, wide receiver out of Memphis, who went undrafted in this last year's draft. So when you look at Roc Taylor, he showed up and he showed out all of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. He's made one-handed grabs, two-handed grabs, whatever. He's been able to go against the top cornerbacks on this team on one-on-ones and on team sessions and make plays. And that's what's going to allow him to stand out. When the quarterback trusts you to throw you the football, you better come down with it, especially in training camp and practice settings. And Roc Taylor has been that guy. And it's going to catch the coach's eye, because it's definitely caught the fan's eye. Whenever you look at social media and you look at the players who are on the edge of this roster, who the fans really love, even in my comments, you see Roc Taylor's name being mentioned. And that means that if he continues doing what he's going to do, and he shows up in preseason and plays the exact same way and puts up numbers, there's no way the Steelers could allow him to not make this roster, because he has that big playability and he has shown it in practice thus far. So Roc Taylor has been a name who has impressed thus far in camp. Also, looking at another name who's impressed. Obviously, I could go with the top tier guys like TJ Watt and things of that nature. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about the guys who are younger standing out. And Caleb Johnson and Will Howard are two of them. Especially Caleb Johnson, because the biggest concern for him coming into the NFL was pass protection. Would he be able to block? And so far, he stood up and was able to dominate the one-on-one blocking drills. And he went against Mark Robinson twice, a fierce competitor in Mark Robinson, and was able to stand him up and block him. And his coaches celebrated his win. So Caleb Johnson has been able to show up in that regard, but also in terms of running and catching the football as well. He's been able to do what we all know he could do and show that burst and make plays. So he has stood out. And Will Howard thus far as well. He has made all the little throws at a high rate. And that's what you want from a quarterback, especially someone getting drafted as late as him. You want him to stand up and show out in terms of all the little things and do that well. And that's what he's done. But even getting touchdowns in the red zone and making those big throws down the field, he's done that as well without turning the football over. You don't want to turn the ball over, especially in practice, and he hasn't really done that this far. So those two guys have also showed out. And I mentioned Mark Robinson in terms of getting stood up by Caleb Johnson, but in terms of team sessions, he's another player who against the run has absolutely dominated in terms of stuffing the run and making plays in the backfield. So if this is his time to show that he can still make this final roster, because the Steelers are stacked at inside linebacker, he needs to continue doing this, and thus far he has during camp. So far those are 4 guys. Let's go name a couple more, because when looking at the Steelers team, they have a lot of new people on the roster. And Jalen Ramsey has been a player who got traded here, and he's showed up thus far in terms of making interceptions and making plays and just being the playmaker that we all know he is. A lot of people saying he's washed up, but so far in practice and camp, he's been able to show up and be able to show that he's not that washed player, and he still has it a little bit. And getting interceptions off of Aaron Rodgers and things like that. Another player is Joey Porter Jr., who even before his injury, he may get a touchdown allowed on him with DK Metcalf, but that's going to happen with so many times being targeted. But in terms of making plays in the backfield and locking players up this far in camp, he's done a great job of that. Another player so far in terms of showing up since he's been here has been Chuck Clark. In terms of the one-on-one things that he's been doing, he's had a really successful full week, and it's not no guarantee that he's going to make this team because he was just added. No, he still has to fight, even though he's a veteran, and thus far, he's been fighting and showing that the Steelers added him for a good reason. So, Chuck Clark as well is a winner. Darnell Washington, on the other hand, is another winner because he's showing his size. He's showing his hands. He's showing his run after the catch. He's basically showing everything that he showed in college. So, Darnell Washington is a big monster over the middle of the field, and he showed it this far in terms of making plays in camp all over. So, now moving over to the players who did not have a good week and did not have a very good first week as well. There's a lot of them, and there are a lot of the top tier players on this roster. For example, I would throw DK Metcalf into that boat. Yes, he's made touchdowns here and there on slant routes, but in terms of catching the ball consistently, it seems as though he's dropping a lot, and he's just not putting up that big production in camp thus far. But obviously it's just camp. We know what he could do. He's a seasoned vet when it comes to the NFL, and we expect more come regular season. But this far in camp, he just really hasn't showed that. So another player is Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is a player who we've seen the viral clip of him getting beat in pass protection against Alex Highsmith and him standing around. But in terms of just everything else, he just really hasn't showed it this far in camp, and he's just gotten injured as well. So injuries obviously derail a good start, but in terms of trying to be a big person on this offensive line this season, he needs to continue to improve because right now at camp, we're just not seeing it. Another player is Isaac Seumalo. Isaac Seumalo has been injured basically the entire camp, so obviously you can't put him as a winner. And in terms of people who need to step up once he gets healthy, he's one of them as well. And the last one I'm going to mention is Darius Slay. Darius Slay is a player who a lot of people are now talking about that knee injury that he had dealt with a few years ago and saying how the Eagles moved on from him because of it. And maybe he's not the same player now with the Steelers as he was last season. So there's talk around him because it seems as though every big play that is being made in practice is usually on Darius Slay. But he's a player I'm not concerned about. I don't think that knee injury is anything. He played really good last season, even for his age. I don't think one season is just going to make a big difference. I'm really not concerned about Darius Slay, and I think when it comes time, he'll show up and show out. He's been doing this such a long time at a high level that a drop-off isn't just going to happen all of a sudden. Now, moving over to players that we haven't heard too much of, but they're also not doing that bad, are players like Troy Fautanu. Troy Fautanu is having a solid camp, but in terms of being great, he's been beaten by TJ Watt a lot in terms of all his one-on-ones against him. So he's not doing too good, but also he's not doing too bad as well in terms of the negative stuff that we hear about Broderick Jones. We're just not hearing that about Troy Fautanu. And another player is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers isn't having a great camp, but he's also not having a bad camp as well. The first few days weren't as good, but he stepped it up the next few, and he's just had a solid camp in general in terms of making the right throws at the right times. And once again, he's a seasoned vet as well, and you're not too worried about him in terms of regular season, just like I said with DK Metcalf. So those are some players right there who are having a solid camp, but nothing too amazing or nothing too bad. But anyway, that's the end of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp for week 2. And let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on who on the edge of this roster, in terms of guys who are fighting to make this team, do you want to see make it? And who do you think is proving themselves in training camp thus far and showing out amongst the group? Me personally, I think it's Roc Taylor. Whenever you see clips of Steelers highlights in practice, you see Roc Taylor. Whenever you hear people talk about Steelers practice and talk about guys standing out, it's Roc Taylor. So he's a guy to keep an eye on when it comes to making this final team. But anyway, let me hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And also, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports. Everything surrounding this team, I have you covered. And this is the best spot for everything Pittsburgh Steelers football. So make sure you stay tuned for all the training camp news and more. And until the next video tomorrow, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.